Welcome everyone to Sherpa Software demonstration of ToneCheck for IBM Lotus Notes. My name is Grant Lindsay and I'm a product manager here at Sherpa Software, and I'll be taking you through today's presentation. Let's begin with some basic information. What is ToneCheck? To help us understand what ToneCheck is, let's compare it first to something that we're already familiar with, spell check. Spell check prompts us when it discovers words in our email that it doesn't know. We then have an opportunity to either change the spelling of those words or let them go as is. ToneCheck acts in a similar way, but instead of looking for misspelled words, it analyzes the emotional impact that our email may have on a reader and prompts us to correct overly negative sentences. Why do we need something like ToneCheck? In face-to-face communications, words actually account for less than 10% of what we are actually saying. Our tone of voice, facial cues, and body language do the work of conveying emotion. In text communications, however, like email, we are missing all of those additional elements, leaving the reader to presume the intended sentiment from just the words alone. Email comprises a large part of our communications, and this increases the opportunities for emotional miscommunication. And those miscommunications can be costly for our company's reputation, its bottom line, or both. Now I'd like to show you how ToneCheck works for an IBM Lotus Notes email user. So let's switch over to Lotus Notes and I'll show you how that works. Here we are in Lotus Notes 8 and a standard Lotus Notes email file. Let's compose a new message, and I have some stock text to place in this message for the demonstration. And as the user, I'm going to now click Send to send the message. You'll notice I'm leaving the to field blank, which will prevent the message from being sent, and I'll explain that in a minute. But right now, let's kick off the ToneCheck. Now what we're seeing in this dialog box is ToneCheck telling us that one of our sentences has exceeded the thresholds that our Domino administrator has set for us. This particular phrase, I'm worried, is scored pretty high in concerning and a little bit less than that on upsetting. These are the 4 emotional parameters that ToneCheck analyzes. You'll notice, however, that even though we scored into the yellow, we didn't go as far as into the red on these emotions. In this range here in the yellow, this is the alert setting, and this allows us to change the text if we want, or we can simply accept it as it is and let it go. Additionally, we can either ignore or flag this sentence too. And let me explain what that is. If we click on that button, here we have 2 choices to handle this particular phrase. We can add it to our ignore list, which is like a local whitelist, and so we won't be prompted for this phrase anymore in the future if it comes up. The second thing we can do is flag this sentence to be reevaluated by the ToneCheck software. And this will improve the quality of the tone checking in future if we disagree with this particular analysis. But right now I'm just going to click cancel on this. Since I'm satisfied with this phrase, I'm going to accept it as it is and move on to any other phrases that might trip our thresholds. And here we have a second one. Now this sentence is a little bit more negative than our first one, and we've hit into the red on this sentence. And again, this is a threshold that our Domino administrator has set. Once we're in the red, we have to fix the sentence. We can flag it again, as I showed you on the first sentence, but we can't accept it or ignore it. We have to fix it. So let's do that now and soften this particular sentence. And then what we can do is re-tone check our new sentence. Now this has come back all okay. There's no negativity on this. And our accept button is now lit. And we can see down in the preview area where this sentence fits in with the context of our email. So let's accept this sentence and see if there are any more that we need to deal with. And there are not. And again, we get this prompt because I didn't put any addresses in the to field, but I did that deliberately so that we could see that the text in our email has been updated with the edit that we made in our tone editor dialog box. So now we could send this message to Bill, and we would have confidence that the tone has improved. Here we are within Compliance Attender for Lotus Notes, and specifically the ToneCheck views. Here we have two ToneCheck compliance restrictions already set up. Let's go into the first one and take a look at the details. On the Basics tab, we have the title, the type, and the priority of this particular restriction. On the Account tab, we can specify which users are going to be affected by this restriction, or we can also do it by which server, for example, which mail servers those users are on. The bulk of the configuration happens on the ToneCheck tab, which I'll scroll down for us here so we can see it. We have two types of tone checking that we can do. The live tone checking is what I demonstrated previously, where we analyze a message immediately as it's being sent and then prompt the user to make corrections as needed. Historical tone checking doesn't actually stop a message, but it looks at messages that have already been sent and collects statistics about them based on the tone, and that will help us collect a baseline or see how users' tone is improving over time. The enforcement methods are to use either the emotional detail, which is what I demonstrated, where each of those 4 negative emotions is compared to its thresholds, and then the user is prompted to take appropriate action, or, as what I'm showing you now, overall sentiment, in which we have 1 meter that indicates the tone check thresholds for the overall negativity of a particular sentence. The options which I have selected and turned on here allow the administrator to control which users have the ability to flag or ignore alerted sentences. So this can be turned on or off based on whose mail accounts you put onto the Accounts tab. For historical tone checking, we can also optionally move messages into folders based on the dominant emotion on those messages. And so you can group together in these folders those messages and take a closer look at them to see why they may have been scored in the way they have been. The actual thresholds are set here on the bottom with the tone meter here. The color gradient in the background indicates the amount of negativity that we are dealing with. So obviously closer to 0 has less negativity, closer to -10 has more, indicated by the green to red. Where we set the 2 arrows, yellow and red arrows for alert and block, indicates how ToneCheck will behave for the end user. The way we have it set up now is we are willing to accept any amount of negativity up to -4 on our scale, at which point we're going to block the message and have the user correct it before it's sent. If we want to allow the user some leeway, we can move the block arrow down to -8, and now we're saying anything from -4 to -8. We'll let the user decide if they can send that or not. If we move the block arrow all the way to -10, then we will never block a particular message. But in this case, we're going to prompt the user when the negativity reaches -4, but any amount after that they're allowed to send or correct as the case may be. And we can effectively turn off tone checking by placing both arrows at -10, in which case we're saying any amount of negativity is okay. We're not going to stop the message and we're not going to alert the user. Going back out to the Compliance Attender main view, let's move over to the Mail Accounts information view, and we'll open up a mail account for this user. And here on the Tone Information tab, we see a breakdown or a collection of statistics over time for this user. And we've broken down the statistics based on the hour of the day of the week, and each month as a total. If we look at the hours of the day, we can see in the first few columns, the message statistics. So how many messages were checked, how many were passed, alerted, and blocked, based on those thresholds that the administrator has set. In the remaining columns, we have the dominant emotion that those messages had, and then the percentages and totals for each of those. So over time, we can see trends, perhaps noticing that at particular hours of the day, particular days of the week, there may be more negativity or less negativity for a particular user. Additionally, we can see the statistics by month and be able to see that since we've installed ToneCheck, the general tone of our users' emails has improved, or perhaps it hasn't, and we might need to address that. So these basic statistics are included with ToneCheck and allow you to collect useful information on the communication patterns within your company. To find out more about ToneCheck specifically, or to connect with us at Sherpa Software on Twitter or Facebook, you can follow these links. Thanks for listening.